Okay. Well, welcome to Papa Bear Peppers, and I'm Harold today. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I water on my raised beds, and by no means is this a way that you have to do it, but it's what I like to call my wet it and forget it type of a irrigation system, and kind of a poor man's. As you can see here, this is my timer. And whatever timer you get, you want to make sure you follow the manufacturer's instructions. Most of them are really easy to set up. This particular one has 2 outlets and 1 inlet. And essentially what I do, now this is connected down here because I just got done blowing this out, blowing it out with my garden hose. But essentially what I'm going to end up doing is connecting this in through the garden hose to the 2 outlets where you see that short run of hose and the white outlet right down there. And those are going to irrigate all of these beds that you see here. Yep, I've got, I took the time and I buried, I've got irrigation pipe, 1/2-inch irrigation. It goes in down over here. One of them comes up and it pops up right here where you can see here, and one over there, and each one has a PVC irrigation pipe that comes underneath the raised beds and then up and in and threaded into a threaded extension that's, they're similar to how this one is, but they're a lot shorter. But this is a threaded extension that threads right into it. And some minor plumbing skills, you can connect those up yourself and run them in. I always make sure to set these up. And as you can see on this bed, it's already set up over here. And all I have left to do on it is put the mulch in. But you have, basically you have the 1/2-inch irrigation pipe, and then you get the spears and you plug right into this line, and they come out, loop around, and they'll come out like where you see here, where it comes in over here, comes out, loops around, and then ends right there at the end. So it's not going back into it. However, you could. But that bed I set up already, and I just wanted to give you a quick DIY on how you could do this yourself, and just at least do one run so that you all see how I'm doing that. So after I get everything connected, I'll run it real quick off of the hose just to see that everything runs right, and then I'm going to end up covering it with a mulch. And in this case, I'm going to be covering it with a landscape fabric, in which I'll come this lengthwise with it. This is a 3 foot, and of course this is 4 foot, so I'll make some trims. And so I'll staple it on the sides here, and of course my plastic one, I'm going to have to staple it down using my homemade staples, and I'm about to show you that in a minute as well. But this fabric will cover it up, and that'll help retain the moisture, and then I can get my moisture meter and see how well I'm retaining the moisture, how often I need to water. And that's the great thing about this, is once I figure that out, I can set up my watering times. I can set up when they're going to start, how long they go, and so forth, so on and so forth. So it's just a continuous thing that, the only time that you're really messing with them is coming out to check your peppers to make sure, you're not having any kind of disease going on, or maybe one of the irrigation lines pop off and you have to fix it. But they're pretty self-sufficient, and last year I used this type of a system and it worked fantastic. These beds loaded up, I never had to worry about watering. That's just one less thing I had to do, and I could focus on my nutrients. I could my worm tea, things like that. And if I wanted to, I could shut the system off for a couple days and then apply my nutrients. So it's really a great system, a great wet it and forget it system, and a very good upgrade to your raised bed system. And in the case on my other one, I'm going to have drip lines coming off to certain my larger containers, so I can actually run a drip, an automatic drip irrigation to those too, and give them a slower. If I'm using a drip irrigation, I can slow that down some. So first of all, one thing I am doing right now is I'm making staples, and all I really do is I bought a spool of this wire from Home Depot, $10 for, I think it's 50 feet or so. And all I do is I take them, and it's a stainless steel, which is, now you can simply buy the staples in a package like this. There's 75 staples in here, but they seem to be a little shorter, just a little bit shorter than what I'm making. And one thing is that I noticed, like after 1 year, you can see how this one's rusting up. Now this is a new one, and then after 1 year it looks like that. The ones that I'm making are stainless steel, and all I do is take a 1/2 inch piece of pipe, or if you want them bigger, you can use 3/4 inch pipe, and I bend them right over like that. And in fact, I've got this whole system here has been secured with these stainless steel spikes, and it's very simple. That's all, you know. I just sit there and I just ran these off with a pair of my wire cutters and just simply cut them off. I just run it straight like that and get about 1 foot or so and cut it, and you end up like with pieces like this, and you just take it, put it around the pipe, bend it, just an old scrap piece of pipe, whatever. It can be 1/2 inch, it could be 3/4, whatever you want, and you basically generate your own landscape staples. I don't know, it's just something I prefer. I think that the stainless steel is going to last longer and allow me to. Now, one thing I've done for this, and you say, well, why do you put that down before you plant? Well, I've got this marked out on here, and there's marks right here, right here, right here, because essentially I know what my pepper plants are going to do. I know how big they're going to get. I know basically my spacing is, if I give them 18 inches, they're going to have plenty of room to grow. So that's what I've done on these beds. And now this one, particular one, is going to be my veggie bed, but still I give them roughly the same spacing, and if I can put more in between, so be it. But I know how these vegetables like to spread out, and my big things are zucchini and cucumber, and I'm going to run pole beans up over there and up here because I love my pole beans and the French style beans and what have you. So as I was talking, I made a bunch of those. Now you can go, the easiest way to go on this is to get Barbed fittings, and they'll look just like this. They have a barb on one side that allows you to, now there's 2 different types you can get. You can get the style like this, that these won't puncture. You have to puncture a hole for them. So, and that's at most of your hardwood stores. These particular ones come from a landscape construction or landscape supply company, and they're a lot stronger, and they look similar like this one is, where they have that barb, and that will pierce this 1/2 inch black tubing. So it makes it nice to be able to use those and not have to buy the extra tool for piercing. And they have the tool out there that you can buy to pierce. For that fact, you can pierce with one of these and basically accomplish the same thing. So basically what I do is, I know that I have a planting line right here, and it comes across. So what I want to do is establish where that hole is going to go on this one. And on this particular ones, I'm going to use 90s, and they're going to just run as close to this pipe as I can. And this tool here allows me to just insert. What I'm going to do is take this, and you can do it with the long, like the straight ones too, is you take your bit like this and you put it right in the end just like that, and then it allows you to have that extra grip for puncturing into these things. So essentially what we'll do is we'll come into here and get out of your way, and hopefully you're seeing this. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in for you. Maybe that'll help you out a little bit for it. But I'm going to tell you, this system is an awesome system to use. And if you love watering your garden, then by all means, continue doing that. Don't worry about it. But this makes it nice. It's just one thing less you have to do. And I tell you, I work at, and see there, I punctured it in, and now it's embedded into it, as you can see right there. Right here, I pushed it in, and now it's seated. So then, all I need to do after that is I need to establish my water line and where it's going. So what this is right here is a plug, and all it does is plug the end of this tube so water cannot just run straight through it. And this is a weep type of a hose. This is a 1/4 inch weeping type of a hose. What it does is it'll just like your big soaker hoses, but this is a smaller version of it. And all you do is you take this plug, and you could actually fold this over right here and take a piece of wire and wrap it around there, and you don't even need a plug. However, I'm using plugs just because it's a nice clean finish to it. All you do is shove that in the end like that, and you can see it's got a pretty good grip there. And if you feel like you want more, you can turn it around and get your tool. And there's a special slot in here just for doing this, where you can do this and get your tool and push this in just like that. And that gets you a nice fitting on there. So now I've got that in. I'm going to hang my staples back here so they're out of my way. And if it's easier when you're doing this to run a string line on all your marks, so be it. But I measured these, and I'm 9 inches from the inside to the corner to this first spot, and then I move on and on. And I'll leave some staples out here just so I've got them to work with. Get these ones out of the way. And I may use those just to use them up. How I cut this tubing is I use just a basic straight razor knife. You can use a pair of scissors if you want. So now that we've plugged the end of this, like you see there, I'm going to go ahead and clear things out. Now I have one arrow right here, and I have an arrow right there, and I need to make sure that I'm irrigating to these 3 lines. So this tool is not going to be required to insert this. And what I'm going to do is where I inserted this piece here, I'm going to take the end that's open, and I'm simply going to push it in. And make sure it seats in. And now all I have to do is come over here, and I know where my other one's going to be here, so I can go ahead and pin this down right here and give myself a little bit of room for digging when I want to insert my plants in. And then I just come back and around, and I'm going to run it like so. So then I can take another one, and on this one I can just kind of run it, and I've got a little extra length, so I'm going to go ahead and pin it down there, and I'm going to pin it right there and one right here. Yeah, we'll move it in a little bit right there. So now once I cover this up, once I run these and then I cover it up, I'm going to be putting a plant here and putting a plant here and putting a plant here. This irrigation is going to water all of these plants at the roots and at the soil level, and it'll give it a nice, great, you don't have to worry about splashing, because a lot of diseases are created by the water hitting the ground and coming up and causing blight and different things like that. Now, I wanted to point out that on the very back bed, that's a very small bed. And what I like to use is these controllable heads. Each one of these is a 1/4 inch opening on here. And I'm going to get behind so I make sure you're seeing it. Each one of these is a 1/4 inch opening, and then each one of these screws points to the corresponding head that it controls. So you can literally open all 8 of these, or in the case that I have in the back bed back there, way back in the back there, I can control that, and I only have 4 of those working. So I can run this one, this one, this one, and this one, and shut off all the other ones, so that that's the only water flow that that's going to have on that smaller bed back there, and it won't flood it out as much, because that bed is running with the larger bed over here on the side over here. So I have to make sure I control the amount of water, and I can actually dial this down on these things to get the amount of flow that I want. So I really, and this is made by Orbit, and this is the Master Apollo 8, and it's a really nice head. I have a few of these, and I found these to be better than a lot of the other multi-heads. There's 4-head ones that they don't have controllers on them, and to me that's crucial when you're running multiple systems like this off of 2 irrigations. Now I could get a irrigation head that has 4 on it, but you know, when I run those, then I may not, you know, or I could get a
4-station
controller of this, but this one's just a little more efficient and takes out a lot of the extra work, because I'm feeding these 4 beds pretty much the same, irrigation at the bottom, and if I feel like one's getting more than it needs, then I can slow that down. But a lot of vegetables, peppers included. These beds I've made to drain very well. They've got a lot of mulch in them. They've got a lot of the nutrients that they need, but I've got a lot of drainage in this soil, and I've had very good success with this soil. So I've got a ton of vermiculite in here, which helps with the draining as well. So I can pretty much irrigate these, and they'll run through and do a pretty good job and keep me my water at the roots. So anyway, I just wanted to come out and show you the next step that I'm going to be doing. Now, one thing I did notice is that some of these plugs had popped out during the initial run. So what I'm going to be doing is using these small zip ties to secure them, and just to make them stronger. And I've in the past not ever had a problem with these popping out, but since I did see one pop out, I don't want to be in the middle of my grow season and be having to fight my irrigation system, when it's just as easy to come in, run the zip tie down, get it good and tight so it can't back off, and all you gotta do is take, you can either do a pair of scissors or some wire cutters. Just come down here and cut it close, just like so. That way you're not going to have that fail on you sometime in the middle of your grow season. And that would just, you know, and if you're doing a wet it and forget it type system like this, you have to make sure that everything's going to be secure. So I do that end, and then I come here and I'm going to do this end, get it right up here near the edge right here, and then just pull it, get it, make sure you got your last check here right to the end, and then pull it good and tight, and that'll keep it from backing off. And here's with the wire cutters, you can do it either way. Like I said, either the wire cutters or the zip tie or the scissors when you cut them off. And just, I'm gonna go, do you need to do that? No, but I don't want to take any chances on my irrigation system, I want to make sure that I'm secure and that I'm not going to have any problems. So I'm going to go through here and make sure that I get them all secured. And my initial tests are showing that the system is working as planned. Now obviously I don't have the cover on this yet, but I was just showing how, now these are misting slightly and that's hard to see through this video, but you can see where some of them spray up like that, but this is all going to be under cover, and you see how the tubing actually sweats just like your, see if I can get in here, you can see how the tubing is just sweating in there, and just like they're doing back here. This is another type but the same kind, and it sweats irrigation. And here's where I've got that 8 head 1/4 inch neck out, and I'm going to close off all the water to the additional 4 that are not being used. But this is just my initial check to make sure all of my irrigation is working as advertised. Now on this bed here, you can see that I've got 4 total there, but I've only got truly 2 lines running. These are interconnected, and it just provides better consistency of the water pressure throughout the drip irrigation, and that's why you see it the way you do, connected 4 ways. It's just better drip irrigation and more consistent throughout the system. You can see how this bed is now wetting. It's getting nice and damp, and once I get the cover on, this is going to start soaking in. So it'll be a great system, easy to maintain. I usually have it going off before I even get up in the morning, and then the plants are already ready to go for the day, no matter if it's hot or warm. And right now I'm just using my single system because I'm working on my dual out single in system. This is another one of the orbits. It does exactly the same type of a system as its big brother. So, and you can see how the tubing is just sweating, and that's what you want it to do, is sweat. It's going to do just like how the bigger ones are that you connect to your water lines. The only difference is these are micro tubing, or what they consider micro tubing. And what I'll be able to connect onto the end, and this is a controlled drip emitter, and you can see how it's got the blue and the black there. So basically it's going to come out this blue end, and it goes into the black tubing over here. And what I can do is on the end here, off of this last line that's right here, I can run a tube off over here and have a few bed containers back here, and I can run these in here, and that'll control the amount that's actually coming out and going to those containers. It'll be a more controlled amount that's coming out. So the primary watering is going to go to the raised beds, that one back there here on this particular system, and this one, whereas the other system will water this bed and that bed. So these 2 beds are connected, that back one and this one are connected, as well as what I run off the end there. So the operational check looks good. Everything seems to be working properly. There might be a few tweaks that I do, but I mean, overall it's working exactly how I want it to. So that way when I cover it up, everything will be running great. All right, so here we are, and what I'm going to use this time is, like I said, I have my beds marked out, and what I'm going to do is cut a piece. I've got my staple gun here. There's different ways you can do this. You don't have to, if you don't by any means, you can use the same staples that I made to hold this fabric down. But for this particular one, I'm going to just come over here. And I'm not going to staple it heavily. I'm just going to put enough staples that it stays in place. Just like so. Just like that. Because if an irrigation piece comes off, I have to be able to look at it. So it's going to, I'm just doing this enough to hold it in place. And even after I do, I'm not going to overstaple it. This is just a mulch. It's just to keep everything covered, keep the moisture in. So now I'm going to just cut right alongside the wood, and I'm looking right through this barrier and I feel the wood, so I'm just going to cut the edge and keep my knife or my scissors right on the wood like that. And there's my first piece. And by all means, there's all kinds of ways you can mulch. This is just a way to keep things really clean looking, you know, and it also will keep the weeds down. And this is your basic landscape fabric, and like I showed you before, and this particular one is just a weed control, and it allows moisture to sweep through when needed, and so forth, and helps conserve the water. So I'm using it for my top cover mulch, but I'm going to cut now. This one is going to be different, so I already know I want to take it to the end and make it the same. And now I'm going to bring this out. And take your time with it, you know what? Ugly or whatever, but you can bring this out. And I was fortunate on this one, wow, that it comes right out where I need it to. And so now I'm going to cut this piece in half for the purpose of this video, and I've got one for this other bed and one for this one. For this video, I'm just going to staple it down and show you how it works, or how you can do it. One way you can do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the other side. A little bit of a wind is playing with me a little bit. So take this. I'm just going to put one staple in over here. And then I'm going to put one staple right here just to hold that in place. Now, take my last piece. I'm going to cover this system up. So, right to the edge, and I'm going to keep right at the edge so I can still see my marks that I made for where everything goes. Just like so. And I just come down here. I draw this out, pull this over, like so. And I still got my marks right there. Now, if you want, what you can do is either make your cuts now or get some white marking paint like this. And I'm just going to put daubs where I know that those are going to go, so I can make my cuts. I feel it right there just to make sure that I'm not going to hit it. So here's my first mark, and I've got a little spot right there where I have reference to where, and I'll come over here, check my reference, and I'll put another mark there. Now when I'm ready to plant, I'll have these marks on here, and all I have to do, I can either take some scissors and come in and make a slit in here, an X, or I can get a razor knife and do the same thing. By applying this, what I'm going to end up doing is saving myself a lot of money on irrigation, because a lot of the moisture will be trapped inside of here. The plants will still get the water that they need. This will keep the soil from splashing up, where you get a lot of diseases on plants, and keep them growing really solid and fresh. Yes, you can use a wood mulch if you want. I'm just going for this application because I've done this once before, and it sure does hold a lot of the heat in for the roots on my pepper plants, and that's what peppers want, is nice warm roots. And it'll also keep me from having to water quite as much, so I can adjust this accordingly as I see fit on how much moisture it's actually going to hold into place. Well, this is Harold with Papa Bear Peppers, and hopefully I've showed you something today on how you can do your own wet it and forget it irrigation system, and it'll help you spend more time taking care of your peppers and feeding them, and less time holding on to the water hose. So y'all take care and have a great day.